Well, welcome everybody. My name is Angelina Vergara and I'm the Stopway Schools Program Manager. And this is our second session, Climate Action Project Solution Sessions. And we're really excited for our conversation today. If you haven't come to one of these sessions yet, it's really an informal space, really to make space. And we're here essentially to share, to learn from each other, collaborate, amplify youth voices and, voices in a circle and take action. And we're really building upon the conversations to help create some agenda items for the next sessions, which are monthly. And then we're going to have a powerful presentation that Shreya Ramachandran, a Fremont youth leader, who really has not only leveraged what they can do as youth to lead climate literacy in their school district, but also shares a story of how to use this specific platform with Bright Actions and Community Climate Solutions. Then we're gonna have Patrick Journey speak, and you're gonna basically observe us live looking at the platform, and hopefully it'll get you going and have your own questions for how maybe you can use this with your youth and your climate action plans. And then we'll have some discussion and next steps. Well, really appreciate you being here. We know teachers are doing this definitely a labor of love. So really here to support you, Susie, and hopefully we can follow up on how we can. So we are going to go ahead and I don't think anyone in this session has seen our Earth Week. We did a bunch of climate talks that were youth driven. And on the last day we had art in action. And we asked Shreya Ramachandran, who is the Stop Waste Ambassador Youth, but also she was the Children's Climate Prize winner. When Greta Thunberg said, no, I'll pass, I don't want to do a carbon footprint travel, she actually was offered the honor, and she is just a force, and you'll see that. This is a 10-minute recording, and she does better than anybody I know, like really why is climate literacy important? And she's gonna share in this clip specifically how she's taking action, and really excited to share this with you. So this is about 10 minutes, and then after that, we'll meet Patrick to talk about the platform that she's referring to. And my son is instructed to take the dog out. So that all said, let's give a warm welcome to Shreya.
Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be among you again. As Angelina said, I've presented at Stop Waste events before, and I'm always inspired by the stories that people share and all of the work that's happening in our communities. So today I will be talking about two projects that I'm leading. First, I'll be talking about the climate literacy efforts here in Fremont, and then I'll dive into my nonprofit, the Greywater Project, and the work that I am doing there. So I'm going to share my screen to present some slides, and let's see if I can, whoa, 1 second, move that bar over, slideshow, and from the beginning, there we go. Awesome. So yes, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about climate change literacy, specifically in FUSD, and then we'll dive into the Greywater Project a little bit. So why are we focusing on climate change literacy? Well, we've already seen millions of young people take action for the environment. So clearly youth know that climate change is a real problem. It's something that we're aware of. It's affecting our generation in ways that will be irreversible if we don't take action soon. So it's a fight for our lives right now. So the problem that I and other youth in my community have identified is that climate change in its full is not really taught in K through 12 schools right now. Students learn about greenhouse gases and global warming from a very scientific and technical standpoint, but they don't go beyond that. They don't talk about the impact that this actually has and the implications it will have for the future. In addition, there's nothing actually requiring teachers to actually teach about climate change. There's a ton of teachers that go beyond and really take initiative to incorporate climate literacy education into their classrooms, but there's nothing that strictly requires teachers to do so. So it's possible for students to graduate from a Fremont Unified School District school without understanding the effects of climate change in its full. So I'm going to be presenting a climate literacy resolution to the Fremont Unified School District Board of Education in order to make climate literacy a requirement, essentially, to make sure that students in FUSD are graduating climate literate. And this resolution is necessary so we don't have another generation of climate deniers and another generation of students who are unaware about the negative effects of climate change. In addition, having climate change education be a part of the educational system will empower the climate movement to make the necessary massive societal changes that we need to address the climate crises. Without youth participation and leadership, this just isn't possible. And we also need to be informed citizens. I've seen personally that there's actually a relatively shallow degree of understanding of the breadth and the seriousness of the climate crisis, even by most people who acknowledge this as a problem and who are actually active. So by making this something that's taught in schools, we can make sure that everyone is aware of the issue. And it also provides students with enough information to include this in considerations before graduation, and it might help them inform future career paths or educational decisions. Secondly, learning about climate change changes behavior. In the study that is currently on the screen, it was published in 2020, students who took a year-long college course on carbon emissions showed a 20% reduction in their personal carbon emissions over the next 5 years. And that is incredible. It shows that being educated and learning about these issues results in actual change. Because if you know something is an issue, then you're motivated to actually go out there and do something about it. So there's a whole host of reasons why I am so excited that I'm able to bring this climate literacy resolution to the school board in FUSD. But what is actually in the resolution? So it's actually ridiculously simple. We are the it's we're adopting language from the Sierra Club of California, and we're asking that all students graduate high school knowing the fundamentals of climate literacy, which is defined as the causes of climate change, its potential for harm, what's required to avoid climate destabilization, actions needed to ensure a livable future, and an understanding of the key people and institutions involved in actually implementing these solutions. Passing this resolution means that the Board of Education of FUSD acknowledges that climate change education is important, and they will also educate students on this based on the definition I showed on the previous slide. And it also has teeth. This would require that the Board of Ed create a working group of teachers and district staff who develop an implementation plan to make sure that this actually goes out and reaches the students. This working group does not have to create new curriculum. There's a ton of available curriculum resources for climate education, as I'm sure many of you are already aware. For example, I've developed lesson plans to teach about water conservation and gray water reuse, and organizations from NOAA to NASA to PBS have resources that we can draw on. This will just make sure that FUSD takes those and puts some of it in practice in a way that works best for our district. So it doesn't require a huge line item in the budget, but it's still going to have meaningful impact. In addition, this is specific for Fremont, and this dovetails beautifully with Fremont's climate action plan. I'm my city's youth sustainability commissioner, so I talk about the climate action plan at every opportunity I get, but it's essentially the goals that Fremont is setting to work towards becoming carbon neutral. As a city, Fremont is working on sustainability, so it makes sense that this extends to our schools and to our students, so that we have implemented actions to make our infrastructure greener, and we're also working on educating our general population. This is not the first time that something like this has happened. Actually, the Fremont Working Group is taking a lot of inspiration from what has already passed in Oakland. Student leaders in Oakland Unified School District did something very similar. They created a resolution and took it to the Board of Ed, and it actually did get passed. And right now, Oakland is in the process of implementing climate education across their K through 12 schools, but especially in their high schools. So it's really heartening to know that this sort of work is already being done, not just here in the Bay Area and in Oakland, but in pockets all across the country. And I'm excited that I and the other students that are working on this are able to really make that change. So there's a lot of ways that you all here can actually get involved. We're creating a coalition of students, teachers, environmental groups, organizers, and community members to pass this climate literacy resolution in Fremont. The resolution goes to the Board of Education at their May 5th board meeting, which is coming up really soon. And my group is holding a prep session on May the 3rd for people who are interested in doing public comment or who want to support, so that we have one final push right before the board meeting. We have a petition that is on change.org, and I'll put this link in the chat. And we've had over 300 signatures so far, but we always are looking to get more people involved and have more support. So it would be amazing if everyone on this call today could sign on to the petition and help us gain momentum. And finally, if you're able, and especially if you live in Fremont, speak out in our favor. You can make public comment at a board meeting, and if you're part of an organization or like part of the board of an organization, your organization can write us a support letter that we can pass on, and hopefully that will sway this decision in our favor. So this is an area of active work, and we're almost at the end. I've been personally working on this resolution and pouring a huge amount of time and effort in it since early fall of last year. So I'm glad that it's finally coming to fruition.
We're going to stop there because she talks about Greywater Project, and we'll probably watch that tomorrow at our Litter Free World solution session. But good news is she was able with other leaders to pass the resolution. And, it's great to see two Alameda folks here because we're really taking a playbook out of the work that Alameda Unified has been doing. So myself and Nate Ivy, who used to work at Stop Waste, is a sustainability TSA teacher, essentially, at Fremont Unified. And we were part of that process with Alameda to create a K-12 environmental literacy, climate literacy program from kindergarten to high school. And he's essentially mimicking that process and that coalition that Trey is talking about. He's pulling together students and teachers and really kind of setting out how can we do this work systematically, not just labors of love from teachers, that teachers are supported in getting the resources they need. And in this time where teachers are really taxed because of all the rejoining needs, and specifically, of course, with COVID, they're really using this year as a planning year. And part of that plan is working with Patrick Journey. And the Patrick Journey's work with Community Climate Solutions and using this digital platform where in Fremont, they have been bringing together all the high schools specifically to use this tool online to help authentically contribute to their climate action plan goals to be net zero carbon. And I think from there, if anyone has any questions, you could put in the chat, and or we could also probably just move on to Patrick's piece.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, if anyone has any questions from anything Angela was talking about, Angelina was talking about, you can throw that in the chat. But just to introduce myself to those who haven't met me yet, so I work for a local nonprofit, Community Climate Solutions, and we help cities and counties all across the country engage their residents to take climate action. And as Angelina was mentioning, most of our cities at this point, especially in California, have climate action plans or sustainability plans where they have some really exciting and ambitious goals to reduce their emissions and reduce their water usage and create a healthier and more livable community. And after making those plans, the challenge always is the implementation. So, we were just learning about the difficulties of, figuring out how to create a climate literate school district once you actually pass that policy. That same process of having to actually, figure out how to roll out a plan occurs in all of our cities as well. And what a lot of our cities have realized is that residents play a really critical role in helping cities reach their climate action plan goals. In most cities, residents, just through 5 common household activities, actually contribute to over half of the city's emissions, from the way we get around, to the ways we heat and power our homes, to the food that we eat, to the waste that we create. And in some cities, especially when you get to a smaller community, that goes upwards of 70 or 80%. So residents are really, really critical to be able to tackle climate change as a city or as a county or as a state, et cetera. And what we found is that kids and youth are incredibly effective at motivating their parents and motivating their communities and neighbors, families to take action, because they care and they want to do something, and they have the most to lose and the most to gain, depending on how our future turns out. And so we have some great programs that actually help teachers implement climate action challenges and talk about solutions in the classroom. What we found is a lot of young people get to a place of informed, I forget the right term, it's like informed disengagement, where you realize the problem is so big and it's just kind of hard to figure out what to do about it, or whether any of us can actually make an impact. And what we want our communities to reach is a level of informed engagement, where people know about the problem, but they also know about what they can do or what we need to do to be able to solve this problem, because it will take all of us working together. So one of the things that we've done is created an online tool to help people learn about their impact, learn about what they can do, and help communities work together. And I just put in the chat our national link. So if any of you haven't explored that yet, you can feel free to do so. But just a really quick overview of the tool. An individual and their household together can complete their energy profile, where they learn about their household impact. And especially for young people, it's a great way to, kind of understand what different parts of our lives have an impact on the environment, as a good starting point. And then there's over 80 sustainable actions, and more actions coming to the site soon, actually. And over 45 of them are youth friendly. So something that a young person can do without necessarily any purchasing power or decision making at the household level. So there's a lot that young people can still do, even if their parents aren't available to get involved in the challenge with them. And then, as I mentioned, we have a lot of great programs for communities to work together. And we've been doing some great work in Fremont and some other communities. And I'd love to see, every school district having a climate literacy policy, and every school district supporting educators to take action with their classes and students. And so in Fremont, we've been helping individual educators from 3rd grade through 12th grade work to engage their students on climate solutions. We've also been helping student clubs and student leaders facilitate climate challenges between high schools or within different eco or sustainability clubs. And we're actually starting some professional workshops that will be hosted by the school district, so that teachers can learn about our climate solutions programs as well. So that's just some of the stuff happening in Fremont, and we'd love to get this out to other schools and school districts as well. I'm going to pause here, Angelina, if there's anything else you want to add, or if anyone else has other thoughts before we move on to kind of workshopping on the platform together.
No, I think we're good. I think we want to dive into the platform.
Sorry about that. So one thing that the Stop Waste team mentioned would be fun is to kind of dig in a little deeper to the platform beyond just here's how it works. And so I was thinking it could be really fun to talk about water together. So along with those 5 household activities that have a direct climate impact, water is an incredibly vital resource, and there's a role that we all can play in helping conserve and make sure that we have enough water. And I think especially for young people, this is something that is really clearly apparent in our world, especially in California. We're experiencing a drought. It's a very tangible thing, turning on the tap, turning it off, etc. And water also actually has a huge climate impact as well. So there's a big carbon cost to transport water, to run our water purification facilities that bring clean water into our homes. And then when we heat water with a gas water heater for things like a hot shower or washing our dishes, that also has a climate impact of actually heating it up. Some people have electric water heaters, and then that's a little different, but most of us in our homes or apartments have a gas water heater at this point. So there's not only, the fact that water is vital for our ecosystems and agriculture and society flourishing, but also it does actually connect to climate change as well. And so on the site, there is an action category for every main theme. So the way that we get around, ways to eat sustainably and waste less, ways to make our homes more energy efficient, etc. And then we have the water category. So a lot of our classrooms enjoy working thematically, where maybe each week or each month or over a course of a week, you focus on a theme each day. You really dig into a concept and talk a little bit about, what is this issue at hand? How is water important? And then actually help students work together to learn about the different actions, and then think about 1 or 2 actions that they can take home to do with their family or, do in their daily lives. And with water, there's 2 main categories here for the actions. There is upgrading your house or your apartment to make it a little more efficient. So doing something like a low flow shower head or toilet, or upgrading your dishwasher, installing an irrigation system. These obviously are things that oftentimes require purchases and will save water and save money as a result over time, but isn't always something accessible for young people or young people right away. But there's a lot of other things as well. So one thing that we can do is just use water when we actually need to use it. A lot of people are surprised to find that if you leave the tap on for 2 minutes, about 8 gallons of water goes straight down the drain. So if you're brushing your teeth and you leave the tap on, that's a lot of water that doesn't need to be wasted. So little things like turning the tap off when you're brushing your teeth, or listening to a song while you're showering to keep your shower 4 or 5 minutes instead of 15 to 20 minutes, or even just like filling the dishwasher all the way can actually go quite a long way. And so it's really fun to give students the time to explore these actions together and come up with one action that they want to, talk with their family about doing. And a really popular one is taking shorter showers. Not only does it save water, but it does, for most families, have a direct climate impact because of heating it as well. So when you click into an action, the student can workshop, how many minutes they're saving. So if they get their 3 siblings to all take action with them, they could reduce water a lot more than if they do it just by themselves. And then there's some good helpful tips as well. So students can kind of read through and think about like what their goal would want to be, other things to do. You could go Navy as well, which is where you only keep the water on when you're actually needing to use it as well. Thinking about when to shower, etc. So this just is, meant to be kind of an action guide that helps an individual learn more about the action, learn more about kind of ways to take the action. And then for this one, we don't have any resources, but a lot of our actions have resources that are connected in, like a rebate or a credit or an informational program. I know in Alameda County, there's a great rebate. This is actually in Napa here, but there's a great rebate for like replacing your whole lawn and getting a bunch of money back if you put in, low water or drought friendly plants. So I'd love to pause here and actually just give people the opportunity either over chat or unmuting to share maybe some things you're doing when it comes to saving water, or if there's something that just looking on this platform, something that you haven't done yet, but you maybe would like to start doing and want to look into more. I'd love just to hear from everyone in the meeting.
A lot of people know I don't shower every day. Try to mix it up, and especially during times of Zoom, it's like not for me a necessary thing. But I find that asking people to change up their hygienic practice is actually a pretty heavy lift. Now, I was wondering, Patrick, if you had any comments on, even the small asks can have an ick factor, and if you have any ways to approach it, or would you direct them to another solution?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, people are only going to do what they're comfortable with, but making things fun. So maybe people still want to shower every day, but that tip of listening to a song while you shower, so you keep it short, having some kind of fun tip or trick could help as well. So yeah, that's the tricky thing is, you want to work with where people are at. And sometimes that means they want to do a lot to, be hygienic and shower every single day. And then you got to figure out another way to help them.
Are there water actions and the youth-friendly actions? Could you, I remember,
Yeah,
the youth-friendly ones. Is there anything that's water connected?
We have to take shorter showers.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
kind of like all of them that are here. Turning the water heater temp down is actually, it's connected to, when you use water, how much of an impact it has. Turning off the faucet. Those are, I think, the main ones that are really easy for someone young to do, without the help of their parents. But again, as an educator, it's always great to encourage our students to also get their parents to do more as well. Young people can't buy a low flow toilet, but they can maybe, when their parents are, doing a renovation of their bathroom or something, encourage them to get low flow appliances. So, we want to make sure students know about the other things, even if they're not accessible immediately too.
And what metrics do you use I know you use a lot of different metrics behind your calculator. Do you use EPA warm model, for example? Is that part of your metrics?
What's the EPA war model?
It's just one of the greenhouse gas calculators that we know of. But do you know, like, how do you calculate the metrics in the back? I guess that's the question. I've asked you this before, but I
Yeah,
forget.
that's a great and complicated question. So I did not do the building out any of that. I don't have that background. I work on our programs. But if you're curious to know in detail, I'd be happy to connect you with Lisa, who created the whole calculator. But it was vetted by the University of Berkeley. They have this carbon calculator program, and it actually got the highest grade they've ever given to independently review a carbon calculator program. So basically, we take mostly EPA data and calculate specific impact for everything, and then all of it's localized. So we have the carbon intensivity of your electricity in Alameda County and the cost of water for your utility. So it's very local to actually like how much money you'll save if you reduce water, or how carbon intensive your electricity is if you heat your home with an electric water heater instead of a gas one.
Oh, yeah, that's actually more than I knew. So thank you for that.
Okay, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting. If you live in West Virginia, your electricity is going to have a lot more of an impact than if you live in California. And so there's like really interesting local differences that change the lay of the land for what makes sense or what actions have the biggest impact, etc. And one thing that we're building out are helpful like 3 to 4 minute videos that focus on each theme. So this could be a good tool for educators to, have an easy thing to put up and actually talk about the issue in a clear and simple way as well. So that'll be coming live this fall. And one other thing with water that I was researching is I'm curious if anyone here knows the biggest, water hog at the household level. What uses the most water in a typical American home? Does anyone have a good guess?
Toilet? Toilet?
Yes, flushing the toilet. Yeah, so there's one actually great trick, which is where you can fill up like a water bottle, like a plastic water bottle, and put it in the back of the toilet. And that means each time you flush a little less water down the drain. If you don't have the ability to install a low flow, if you're a renter or something, it's a great way to save on water with each flush. Or there's the classic phrase, which will get, laughs out of your students, which is, if it's yellow, let it mellow.
I kept seeing a big action tab on your tool here, and I'm curious what the big actions are.
Yes. Yeah, the big actions are the heavy hitters, the ones that have the biggest impact. And all of this, so this here is points, which points are either CO2 or water or combination reduction. And this is all localized on your own user profile too. So this household, maybe they said they fly a lot or they drive a lot. And if let's say you don't have a car, this wouldn't be a big action for you because, you wouldn't be making a shift. So this is all localized to your own household as well. But a lot of these get at those big transformational shifts, moving away from gas, whether that's gas in your car or gas at the household level, and getting onto electricity. So we know fuel switching is one of the best things we can do at this point. And then also transportation is the biggest category of emissions for most Americans. So you'll see a lot around transportation as well, because this account travels, the normal amount for an American, 14,000 miles in California. So that's why you'll see those actions here.
Can you scroll down for, again, I saw food stuff, and I know we're in a food friendly folk here around food waste and also talking about plant-based diets. Is that something you all explore in the toolkit too?
Yeah, so we have a whole action around eating lower down the carbon food chain. We talk about that because we know, not all meats or foods in general are made equal when it comes to the environment. And so, we talk about specifically beef and lamb consumption because that's the one that makes the biggest impact. But also just, learning about the carbon impacts of a bunch of different foods. And then we have 3 actions that are all around food waste reduction. So that is, sorry, my Wi-Fi is a little slow. That's in the Eat Green and Waste Less section. So making a meal plan so that you buy what you actually are going to use, and obviously composting if you do have any extra food. Choosing the wonky fruit, so you're getting foods that maybe wouldn't always be sold typically. And then there's a lot here as well around how to specifically store food or serve it more effectively or share it so that it lasts for a long time. And we actually have some resources from Stop Waste as well. So I forget which ones of these are Stop Waste, but then we also have your recipe finder you recommended and fridge reality check. I'm not sure if the Eat This First sign was Stop Waste or something else. So that's another resource we put in.
We stole it from, I think, Seattle EPA, but we made it our own for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Look at that partnership.
Well, if I could share screen too, since we have a couple elementary folks here, is we have this food waste garbologist journal, and it's created for a teacher to use in the classroom. We've used it in a lot of different ways, and we actually can come into your classroom to support using this journal. But when you get to food waste and water, this is one of our fun, our most fun. I think it's really fun looking up how much water, like one walnut, when you throw away a walnut, that's 5 gallons of water you're wasting. And that's that embedded water usage, right? From growing food to transportation to actually getting to your plate and then to the landfill. And you know, there's a lot of talk about almonds being a lot of waste for water, but yeah, walnuts really kind of are champions there. 5 strawberries are 2 gallons. 4 pistachios, 3. I mean, it's really just interesting. And then there's a fun activity just to see how much water these students were wasting because they wasted their food. So that's available to you. Also, we are starting to do facilitated tours. And for folks who join our solutions, we prioritize you all. So if you're interested in looking at food waste and climate change, or even packaging, single-use packaging and climate change, reach out to us and we can come via Zoom, or if your district allows us, we can come to your garden. We're doing a lot of that kind of work too. And just wanted to also shout out that Patrick did work with a 3rd grade class, and we're hoping to have her share, that teacher in Fremont, and she used Padlet a lot. And the students, she did, you know, that great, like where you are. So they did an exercise, I think, where they put little Post-its on how they save energy. And then she helped match it up to the platform. So that was a nice little scaffold. And then, you know, the homework was like, go home and talk to your parents. Because technically it is ages 13 and up, but that's why when you get to elementary, the families have to get engaged. And then Patrick's also done presentations with PTA in Fremont. So that's another avenue, because we know that students and parents are way more available than teachers right now. So to support teachers, Patrick's also been there. So yeah, just to reiterate, Patrick is available for classroom work, as we are as well, to look at this at climate work. Ben also is available. You want to talk about your work real quick too?
Yeah, so Center of Environmental Health is looking at reusables across Alameda County in the food serviceware realm. So we're looking at seeing if we can get rid of some of the, you know, even the compostable food servicewares to something a little bit more sustainable. The food servicewares, we've been finding the molded fibers have this chemical called PFAS on it, which is really bad for youths, but it also is a chemical when you produce it, produces a very nasty greenhouse gas, HCFC 22, which is, you know, 17,000 more times potent than CO2 in the atmosphere. So there's all sorts of reasons to move to reusables, and we've developed a toolkit, and we're trying to help teacher champions, district champions try to do whatever they can. So it could even be just be getting rid of the sport kits and bringing in forks, or just like entirely flipping a school to like stainless steel. We're working with Berkeley Unified School District, and they're beginning to pilot reusables in their district, which is really cool. And we want to see if some other schools in Alameda County want to make this switch. It's a big lift, but I've been telling teachers, I'm in if you're in. So if you're willing to commit a little time to it, I'm willing to commit all my time to make it happen. So yeah, just reach out and I will share my contact info, of course. Hi, Nate.
Yeah, hi, Nate. Gosh, what an opportunity. I don't know if I could put you on the spot, Nate, but we've been shouting out Fremont from the sustainability dinners you did 6 years ago. That maybe Kristin, you could put a link to that, because that work really has built. And we showed Shreya talk 10 minutes about why climate literacy. So it was right before she got the board resolution, and we showed that clip, which we can share with you if you're interested. But yeah, anything about Fierce, your work in Fremont, who you are, and how the platform's been used.
Great. Well, hey, hi everyone. Sorry. First of all, just sorry I'm super late. I got drafted into our district's effort to put together a plan for helping our students get the state seal of civic engagement on their diplomas. And I was notified of that meeting at 2:30 today. So anyway, I've been in that. Yeah, so Fremont has many pockets of excellence and has, a lot of champions and individuals who are moving forward. We've had a long partnership with Stop Waste and definitely valued their support. And the climate resolution that students helped get passed last year has opened up space where we're able to really start talking about putting together a climate literacy and environmental education plan for the district. So that work is going to start this year to make sure that all of our schools have these opportunities, all of our students have pathways towards engagement, that we're responsive to the different types of campuses and communities we serve. So anyway, I'm just really excited to get plugged back in and help our schools and teachers connect to this community and all the resources. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted me to say, but that's who I am.
No, it's perfect. I don't know if you have Patrick in Zoom yet, but yeah, okay, great.
Yes, we have. And just to continue the Fremont shout out, you mentioned the third grade teacher. So just a quick show, each local community has its own leaderboard. This is the one for Fremont. And so a lot of these high school teachers, they have 120, 30, 40 students, right? So they're a lot bigger. And Miss Friedheim, with her 24 third graders, was able to do basically half as much as 150 high schoolers. So she worked over the course of 5 weeks and just they really deeply engaged on sustainability and did almost as much as this AP environmental science high school teacher. So you can do a lot even with a smaller classroom and younger kids because they really want to do something, and they, as I mentioned, are great at getting their parents to engage.
Thanks for that
shout out to Patrick. Thanks, Patrick, for all your support last year and for your ongoing support this year. We've got Patrick scheduled next week to do a Zoominar with our teachers and train them in the challenge and the platform. So we're looking forward to that.
Hey, Nate. It's really interesting to hear about this challenge, right? This is from a million years ago. Thinking about, Angela, what could Alameda do as a district? Now that you're with the city, what could you do to support the school board and the rest of the teachers in AUSD who've been working so hard? We've lost Terry Elkin, and there's a new staff that's replaced them. But kind of nothing is happening, but we have these amazing teachers, Michelle Kuttner, Kelly Schroeder, and we just need folks to help support and step up. And at Edison, we're going to be running our second annual Climate Week in October in a few weeks. Gosh, it's really soon. But we'll have Earth Week as well. And I've been trying to think about, hey, Patrick, how can we incorporate that into, is it just an Edison challenge? Is that just an AUSD challenge? What does that look like? What would that take to plan it? How do we get everyone involved? Thinking about this teacher training, getting some competition in there. Do we, try to just do elementary school, start small, or go all the way? Just it's all of those things, how to support that. And Angelina, thinking about how do we get anything happening that's kind of outside generated, that's not just parents, back at the school again, and thinking about using garden spaces. It's so smart. For our Climate Week or whatnot. Anyway, I'm just brainstorming and just excited about these possibilities. And then Ben, thinking about, with Alameda and the reusables, it's been a struggle over the years. There's one kitchen, something like that. No one wants to do the loop back. The idea of trays or the shared, not so great food that's going out anyway. Milk, condiments, trays, forks. There's a lot of people who are ready to support. We just need leadership from the city as well as from the district. So yeah, just open.
I'll just add, I appreciate learning about all these efforts. I started with the city of Alameda in June, and so I definitely don't have the answers on how best to move some of these initiatives forward, but I'm happy to meet with folks and brainstorm and see how the city can help support. We recently just sent a support letter to the district supporting the dispatch goods program. They're working with a club at Alameda High School trying to get reusable foodware for takeout in one of the business districts. So definitely open to collaborating and again, seeing how we can help support all of these efforts and the great work that folks are doing on the ground.
That's great. And we'd love to, get you connected with any of the folks in any of the different schools that Stop Waste has been working with for all of these years about what they're doing. And maybe, kind of convening an Alameda-wide virtual meeting again to get things going, see where things have been, see what's happened, see how to get things moving.
That would be great.
Janine, one thing we're realizing in Fremont is like that this is not a normal year. And I think, coming out of the pandemic, it would have been amazing if we could have walked back into our schools and found reusable serviceware everywhere and, refillable milk cups and, dishwashers and like the whole system worked the way we wanted it to. But, we've come back, and as much as an emergency as it was to leave the class, it's kind of felt like a same level of crisis coming back onto our campuses. So in Fremont, our systems aren't working well either. And there's, a big emphasis on disposable because of COVID safety, and a lot of concerns around that, and just challenges in feeding kids and managing systems and then organizing clubs or having extra responsibilities. So we're kind of taking the stance that this year is not going to set a new normal. Like everybody's kind of operating, teachers included, in a little bit of a crisis mode this year. So we're trying to take the stance of how do we learn about what we can do this year, and then next year is the year that we open with so many of the things that we want to have in place. Because I think we're going to have that permission that like if we would have started those things this year, nobody was in a space where they could have done another new thing. It kind of shows how fragile some of our efforts and systems have been. But it does give us an opportunity to be thoughtful this year and trying to get something in place for next year. So I was getting a little bit down about that myself. But this whole mind shift of, okay, we're just gonna get through this year and open strong next year has been really helpful.
I really appreciate hearing from you. I'm wondering if that's the same for you, Susie, in terms of how you're feeling.
Yeah, pretty
As a
much.
teacher.
And I'm kind of like, I'm not even really on our green ribbon committee. I'm just kind of tangentially interested. So I'm trying to get things going with we did something at the end of the year specifically focusing on climate change, and I thought, well, if this is me noodling in my room, I could probably bring, if I got some more resources, I could do so much more. So it is like just feeding the kids every day is a thing. And just the idea of like, oh, reusable trays. I remember we used to have those when I was a kid. It's not impossible. But I'm gonna go to the litter one tomorrow, that just how much plastic is just rolling through our school every single day after recess and after lunch. So I'm just trying to start my basic level of like bringing awareness, and I'm interested in the climate literacy aspect of it. And then be able to go forward from there. So yeah, it's a lot. I thought we were gonna walk in and be like, yay, we're back. And it's just so much more than that. It is so much more. Someone pointed out, like, the last time my kids were in school for a regular year, they were first graders. They're fourth graders now, and they're acting sometimes like first graders. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Likewise, I just want to plus one, Nate. Yes, it sounds like it's exhausting out there, and I have more of a national scope now with my role, and I'm hearing that from a lot of the teachers from around the country. So we're trying to uplift certain good news stories as we could, and really trying to get the youth voice to be kind of amplified where we can. It's funny, it's like some of the middle school audience, which is an audience that I know I've shied away from in the past, is some of the most powerful. It's kind of like the Greta's are out there for sure, and they're talking with a certain amount of authenticity that's really hard to ignore. And so trying to locate and amplify that as best we can is also part of the goal. But I do want to caution that, yes, taking this year to be thoughtful about how we can reopen better in the future is, I think, a very pragmatic and good idea. But I also don't want it to get to the point where we're kicking the can, because we've kicked the can there for a long time. So I want to make sure that we have systems in place that it's not so much a can kicking system, but like we are actually expecting better in the future. And the future is pretty much now, or at least in the next school year, when it will be a new normal in the next year, but hopefully it'll be a new greener normal and a new, like, more sustainable normal.
Said, and we are at the top of the hour. But appreciate, I didn't get off recording because I just was immersed in the conversation. But if you're all okay,
one more thing to share.
Yes, last thoughts for sure. And if you have to get off, Patrick had to get off, so we'll make sure that you get all the follow-up information. Please, Nate, share.
I put it in the chat, but last year I made a visualization of age-appropriate environmental and climate education. Just the idea of like putting too much fear or burden on small kids. And it draws from the research about kind of the age-appropriate ideas. But basically this radial graph has some polls on it. So like, you know, at K2, kids need really concrete experiences. It's hard for them to think abstractly. Older kids also need concrete experiences, but they have the ability to think abstractly. For younger kids, it's really important that they have opportunities to, you know, fall in love with the planet. And their capacity to confront fear is limited because they're small. But, you know, as you get older, you can't just have everybody confronting fear all the time. You still need to inspire love of the planet among the older kids. So anyway, it's just a visualization for kind of thinking about the domains of age appropriateness. And I think when we talk about climate, this gets really important in finding pathways to help engage our younger learners without bringing our adult mindset into it.
Nicely done.
So thanks for letting me share that. And I know it took us a minute, but
no,
yeah,
I'll
as
stay
you were talking
all day
about
for
climate,
that.
we need this.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Nate, I love it. I want to use it and integrate it for sure. Thank you. It's a cool tool.
Yeah, I think all teachers and educators are going to want that, because it's hard to figure out how do you focus, especially now, you know, 10, 15, 20 years later, there's so much content out there, let alone bad content, good content. How do you even know where to start focusing and let the rest fall away and be okay with that targeted, really important stuff for the kids that you're, you know, working with one-on-one? And validate what you're working with, like especially from like a garden context, right, outside.
If you have any other tools you want to throw at us, I'm here for it.
No, that's a pretty big one to drop at the very end of a meeting. I'd be happy to talk about it more later, but it just felt like it fit with this topic really well. So I wanted to make sure and get it out there immediately.
Well, so that's a good thing for next steps. Yeah, Nate, if you'd like to be, we're in October, we're asking for like adult teacher champions. Like we want to get Teresa Friedheim to talk about her work with the climate solutions. And yeah, I was going to reach out to you anyway, but you're here. Like if you want to share this or anything else. And then what we're going to do in November is pull together youth panels for our solution sessions. So you'll hear from our youth on what they're doing in their respective action projects. So, and Susie, yeah, if you want to talk about anything, we're here for you. But thank you for joining us. Great to see you as a new face, and please tell your friends we're here. We also have a couple of other opportunities for teachers and parent champions, school champions. We have our 4 Hours Friday events. If you're not on our e-news, we also provide $100 teacher action project stipends to honor your time, but also support if you need any money for any of your action projects. So yeah, more later, but appreciate all of you. Appreciate Patrick for sharing, Nate for coming in, and everybody who shared. We have a lot to think about over here, how we can best continue to support as partners. So if there's any appreciations you want to put in the chat, go for it, or we will see you hopefully next monthly solution session.